The city streets that have been so packed over these last few days now are eerily quiet. Sure, there's still a few shadowy figures moving here and there, trying to make last-minute meetings and appointments, trying to get inside the door before the script starts. That script, that set of statements, songs, hymns that every house in the nation will be going through on this night. And it appears as if almost every house in the nation tried to move into Jerusalem and celebrate it. It's the holiest of holidays. It's Passover. It's the time that Jewish nation is going to come together with families and extended families and remember how God saved your people from Egypt way, way long ago and how you're still waiting for a Redeemer today. And yet in one household, there's so much tension that surrounds this evening. We've now just called it the upper room, the place where the disciples met, where a few of them were sent ahead of time to get preparations made for the dinner. The rest will come in under nightfall. I'm sure they spaced themselves out because a group of 10, 11, 12 people would know who they are. So 2 at a time, 3 at a time. And yet every time footsteps are heard on the stairway outside, everyone in the room turns and stares at the door. Is it friend or foe? Is it disciples making their way up or Roman guards with swords in hand? And one by one, every disciple walks into the room, glances at the floor, glances at the table, and they take their seats. And in this upper room, this famous Last Supper, one final act of teaching Jesus will leave in the minds of his followers. There's one thing left for true followers, true disciples to get and understand. Yes, we've been teaching about it all week. Yes, we've been watching it in his words and his actions yesterday in Jericho. But tonight is the night. He's going to make sure. I'm going to give you a living illustration that you will never, ever forget. It's the last thing on Jesus' agenda for disciples before he takes the cross. Maybe on this Good Friday, it's the most important thing for us to get and apply to our lives today. We turn to a book called John, chapter 13, that last night of freedom before he willingly takes the cross. In John chapter 13, the story goes like this. Now it was just before the Passover feast, and Jesus knew that his time had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. Now the evening meal was being served. The devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So, and get this, Jesus knows who he is, what he's about, what he has to do. He knows the power that God has given him. He knows he's the Son of God, and he knows what the cross is all about. Knowing who he is and what he's supposed to do and what he has to do on this night, so he does this. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Knowing who he was, what he was supposed to do, and how he was supposed to do it, he got up from that table, and he made that slow walk to the door. And when the Son of God stooped down and grabbed the water basin and a pitcher and the towels that was sitting next to it and turned back to the table, I promise you, every disciple sitting there that night had the exact same thought in his head. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. Don't make me the foot washer. We've seen this week, so it shouldn't surprise us. We've seen this going back to Mark chapter 8, Mark chapter 9, and into Mark chapter 10. We've seen this week how the disciples all wanted to know, how does Jesus make me great? How does the cross pay off in my life? What's in it for me? We've seen the disciples arguing about which one of them is the greatest. We've seen them arguing about which one can be first and second, and then 3 through 12. And so this shouldn't surprise us that this is what Jesus has to do on this last night. And it shouldn't surprise if the disciples have walked in the door, they all stopped, looked. They saw the pitcher of water, the basin, and the towel that was beside the door. And then they all saw the seating arrangement at the table. Who gets to sit first to Jesus? The one on his right will be number 1. The one on his left will be number 2. Second to right will be number 3. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, loser. Don't make me number 12. And so instead of washing their feet, which they all knew they had to do, in a home inside the walls of Jerusalem, a home that was large enough to have a second floor in the first century, a home of this type of opulence, you don't walk in with dirty, dusty feet. You stop and there's always a foot washing. However, whoever's house they use that night has sworn to them, there's a price on Jesus' head. I promise you can use our place. No one will know you're here. And they pulled the foot washer from the upper room. Not even our lowest slave will be in this room. You have absolute privacy. But what happens when you pull the lowest slave? What happens when you pull the least out of the ranking? Someone has to fill that spot. Someone has to wash feet. Oh, every disciple could have stopped and washed their own feet. But the moment you wash your feet, you become the foot washer. And the moment you wash your own feet, disciples are going to line up and they're going to stick their ankles out in front of you. Okay, foot washer, wash mine. You've just chosen to make yourself number 12. And so when Jesus gets up from the evening meal, the time for foot washing has already passed. Everyone has taken their seat. The evening meal has already been served. Jesus grabs the water, the towel, the basin, and turns to the table. And they've all got to be thinking the exact same thing. Don't make me the slave. Don't make me the slave. And you could have heard a pin drop when the knees of the Son of God hit the floor. When they watch him roll up his sleeves from hands that are about to be pierced with nails, and he starts untying the laces on the sandals. And the room is shocked as God himself chooses to be number 13. And this is what he has to do. This is the lesson they still have to get because they haven't learned it on the journey. And he came to Simon Peter. I think we all know by now if someone's going to break the silence, it's going to be Pete. And Simon Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. No, Peter said, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you're going to have no part with me, Peter. Well then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. And Jesus said, a person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you, for he knew who was going to betray him. And that's why he said, not every one of you are clean. So when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, that is who I am. But now that I, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example, not a one-time thing to do. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than one who sent me. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if, circle, highlight, underline, if you do them. You're not blessed if you know this. You're not blessed if you recognize this story. You will be blessed if you can do this in life as one of my followers. I, being Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and rightly so, that is my title and my position, I have come to serve you. And you're not willing to serve people in your life? So the servant's greater than the master? The messenger is now greater than the one who has sent him? I've given you an example. This is Christianity. This is discipleship. This is being Christ-like. But you're a manager, you're a supervisor, you're a foreman, you're a shift lead. Oh, I'm sorry, you're the owner. Oh, you're the founder. Not so with you. This was the teaching we watched all week. It's an upside-down kingdom. Jesus says, I want you to be great. I want you to be first. I want you to be number one. Just understand the definition that takes on as a Christian. Christ was number one. He had the power, he had the position, he had the title. And what's he do with it? He outserves everyone in the room. May I remind you, Judas was in the room and he washed Judas's feet. And we call this Good Friday. Because the entire thing started by saying in verse 1 Now he will show them the full extent of his love. That the Son of God came to serve, not to be served. And that he will go to a cross for you and I. That's the extent of how he will serve us. That he will sacrifice himself for us. And on this Friday, he leaves one living, lasting illustration. All of his teaching about being a servant, all of his teaching about putting others first, all of his teaching about making yourself last, he demonstrates it the last night by making himself 13. I will wash their feet. Creator will wash the feet of the creation who is about to stab him in the back. Knowing on this night they will all run from him. Knowing on this night they will desert him. Knowing on this night one of them will come back just to curse that he knows Jesus 3 times. He still picks up the water, the towel, and the basin. And the knees of the Son of God hit the floor and say, I do this for you. If you get this, and you can do this, you will be blessed. But if you can't serve like he served, there's no blessing in that. Are we a disciple this week that is glad Jesus died and rose again because of what it means for us, about what we get from it? Or are we willing this week to truly say, I'll be Christ-like. I'm going to look to serve others in my life and around my life. And on this Good Friday, can we take a moment and just give thanks to a God who never gave up on us, who realized we will not deserve it, we will not earn it, we will never live up to it. He came to outserve us, and he came to sacrifice for us.